excited. I got a message that we're being recorded, so I'm saying continue. And we're very excited that you can join us this evening for yet another leadership development event hosted by the leadership development team for New York State PTA. We have an incredible panel of leaders who have great expertise combined together, too much expertise, that who will be able to answer your questions and any concerns regarding closing your or wrapping your PTA year. And with that in mind, I would like to introduce our Leadership Development Coordinator, Rob Rihos.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome. And again, it's not an understatement when she says there's a lot of firepower behind the leaders and the panelists today. So first, I'd like to start off with, anyway, my name is Rob Rihos, Leadership Development Coordinator, and our lead panelist is Patty Frazier. She's the current New York State PTA president. And our four other panelists are field support coordinators. They've had a lot of experience, all have backgrounds as region directors. Joan Wabnick, Lynn Petrovsky, Jerry Lehane, and Candy Ditkowski. And apologies if I got some of those names wrong. We are also joined today by Jackie Wilson, who is currently the Leadership Development Training Specialist, but she's here to share her experiences with any bylaws as she was the New York State PTA's bylaws past coordinator. So with that in mind, I'll kick it off to Patty and maybe just a general question or introduction as far as PTA is concerned. What should they be looking at now as the year comes to a close? I know there's a lot of transitions, there's audits to be done. So maybe just a general statement as to what they should start with. So maybe we can get some questions in the chat and go from there. Patty?
That's great. Thank you so much, Rob. As always, it's a pleasure to be with everybody tonight. It has been, as we all know, a very challenging year for PTA, but I think a lot of our units and many of you that are joining us tonight have done wonderful things for both your students, your families, and your community. And if nothing can stop PTA, not even a pandemic. So we're nearing the end of this particular school year. And so it brings us to two different places. One, where we're wrapping up all of the things that we did this year. And then two, setting our sights on the upcoming year. And, PTA used to be a sort of take the summer off, July, August timeframe, kind of quieter, but we've tended to ramp it up a little with training. So really when June 30th ends, July 1st starts a new PTA year, and we encourage people to start spending a little bit of time, not all your time, just a little bit of time thinking about the upcoming year. We did face some challenges this year, and we really want to be able to hit the ground running and kind of take those challenges head on as we move into this upcoming year and try to move us back to the PTA that we all enjoy and know does great things for our children. So we're looking forward to hearing any questions. Again, this is kind of an extension of the webinar that we did in May on how to conduct an audit. It was very instructional, but it really didn't give people the opportunity to ask questions while they were in the process. So as we know, units are starting to get ready to do their audits. So I'm here to help with any of those questions, and I'm thrilled to be joined by the field support coordinators who can really round out the discussion and answer just about any questions that you might have on, again, how to wrap up the year or what you should be thinking about as we move forward. Like what are the bright spots that we can bring into the upcoming year, and talk a little bit about the training that's going to be offered through New York State and maybe some of the training that's going to be offered in the regions. So thrilled again, and I'm looking forward to hearing all those questions. Oh, and a special shout out to Krista Basil. I hope you don't mind, Krista, I'm calling you out. It's always nice to see Krista and I are related through marriage. And so it's always fun to have somebody else from the family on the call.
What are the odds of that? Two family members on the webinar. That's exciting. Thank you, Patty. And we have a whole load of expertise on this call. So please ask away. Go to the chat box and put your questions there. Rob and I will be trying to moderate them to our panelists. To start with, until you warm up with some questions for us, I would like to invite the panelists to share, first of all, your biggest advice for the year wrap up. So I'll start with Joan Wobnick. What do you want to advise our PTA leaders in terms of best practices at the end of the PTA year?
Well, I think you should first of all start with some housekeeping and make sure that you have all the contact information for your officers, and that means your addresses, emails, cell phones. So this way you can keep in contact over the next couple of months. Think about what was done this year or what was not done that you hope to accomplish. Sit down as a group, decide to work together, and just begin to think about next year. So you review what you did last year and think about what you can do to either improve it or increase whatever activities you might have had or wanted to do, and also membership.
So almost like a year-end review of your successes and maybe not successes, and where you need to change things and where you'd like to keep them the same, pretty much.
Right.
Awesome. And I will invite Lynn Petrovsky, another field support coordinator, to give us some insights for the end of the year.
So although the year is ending, another year is beginning. So planning ahead is very important, and don't be afraid of change. Change could be good, and it takes many hands to make it work. So when you're moving on, please pass on everything that you have so that the person that is coming in has the best opportunity to be successful.
Super. Great advice. Candy?
I would suggest that, you start looking at those few things that are needed to keep your unit in good standing. We just all received our insurance renewals a few months ago now, and those are due. We want to make sure insurance is in place for your unit for July 1. So if you haven't paid, that would be like probably number one on my list. And also making sure your membership dues are paid to the state for the end of the year, because a lot of times we get those last minute members for the year, and we want to make sure that they're counted as well. So make sure that any and all membership dues have been paid to New York State.
Great advice. Jerry, any words of wisdom for year end?
I would make sure that you get all your stuff together. If you're you're sending it on to the next person, make sure their bylaws are there, a copy of the bylaws, the memberships are paid, the insurance. Try to get things straightened out to pass on. If you're going on to your second year, make sure everything is all set. Review your budget to make sure that whatever needs to be readjusted, you readjust it over the summer so that you can start off fresh.
Awesome. And Rob has some questions for us from the chat. Go ahead.
Yes, I'll reference Kyle. She says fast and furious, and they're definitely coming in pretty quick. So the first question is.
And Rob, before you do that, I'm going to interrupt. I'm so sorry. I just saw that we had a special guest from his district SEPTA, the student representative, Kevin Hernandez. So we just wanted to give Kevin a big shout out. So Kevin, thanks for joining us. We're so excited that you're on the call and typing in the chat box. So thanks, Kevin, for joining us. We'd love when our student representatives of our units are join us. So everybody say hi to Kevin. Thanks, Kevin. I'm turning things back over to Rob.
Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. So the first one is, what is the suggested time for the year-end audits? Maybe Patty?
Thanks, Rob. So for your audit, we recommend starting when the last bank statement is received or accessed. A lot of people do have electronic access now and can print, or some people still have to get it through the mail. So that's when we suggest the audit be done, but there's no reason that early prep can't be done. So again, according to your bylaws, we'll state how you should be setting up that committee to conduct the audit. Or I'm jumping ahead to a question in the chat, I hope you don't mind, but if you can't or your unit decides not to use a volunteer committee, it is an acceptable PTA expense to contract with an accountant to help you with your audit. Either one of those are acceptable. please make sure that that expense for the accountant is included in your budget. So anyway, we recommend that the treasurer just, try to get get all their paperwork in order and do a quick review of their own to try to make sure that if there's any anomalies that might have happened during the year, that they have those kind of flagged just to make it easier for the audit committee to do their work. Our fiscal year, ends on June 30th. So you really, if you possibly can wait to do your audit after the June 30th date, that would be great. But anytime after June 25th, as your bank statement again closes and you have all your records you need for the year, you can go ahead and start the audit. You do need to have a report prepared for that for the first meeting of the upcoming school year. So that's kind of your window of opportunity. And I just want to mention, if you were on the audit webinar, we do have some documents that we've put together that are a sample audit, a worksheet, a worksheet that you can use, and then a final copy. Those will be posted onto the website. I'm a little behind in getting them up there, but if anybody wants to send me an email tonight, I will forward you those forms directly, and my email I will put in the chat box.
Thanks, Patty. You're great. Actually, you jumped ahead and you answered the accountant question and also the location for the first timers. Now, there was another question, I guess, in reference to the first timers. Within that packet, they'll find all the documents that are required to complete the audit and what they need to submit, or it's the report just a final submission.
So if I hope I'm understanding that right. First off, I point everybody to the New York State PTA Resource Guide, Section 5A on finance. There is a step-by-step instruction on how to conduct your audit, so your committee can use those steps. The reports, the blank reports that we've created correspond to the steps, so they're numbered, so it's almost like as you finish the step, and it tells you where to place that information on the report. So those will all be, like I said, on the website, or I can email them directly to people. Was that the right answer to that first timer question, Rob?
Yes, it was. They were asking for it. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Now, the other question is, I'll defer to Jackie on this one. It's reference to the bylaws. How often should chapter bylaws be updated?
Okay, thanks, Rob, and glad to be here. Bylaws need to be updated every 3 years. You can make an amendment at any time during that 3-year period, but you need to be renewing them every 3 years. If you do not have a copy of your bylaws, please contact your region director, who can direct you to get you a copy. The process for renewing bylaws is outlined again on the New York State website. You'll see a page for bylaws and procedures under the leaders tab. And we have the steps, we have the process all documented there for you. It's done by something called the Bylaws Wizard, which is a very easy to do process. However, you do need to have a copy of your bylaws. You need to then look at them, whatever you're going to change, or if not, you still need to present them to your membership with 30 days notice, and they must be voted on by the membership. Okay, so the process is there on the website with all of the instructions, all the documentation you need. Also on there are your region bylaws chairs, who are great people to help you in the process. So their names and emails are also up on the bylaws page.
Thank you, Jackie. The next question I want to break up into 2 separate sections and defer them to to our region directors or our specialists, a field support specialist. The insurance certificate, what do they need to do, Joan, as far as the insurance certificates? Do members need to be updated in Member Hub?
Joan, you're muted, huh?
Okay. Okay, so I do believe that all presidents, and Patty, correct me if I'm wrong, but treasurers also received an email with all that information about the paperwork that they have to submit to New York State, to AIM. And once they submit that paperwork to AIM, they will receive the certificate back from AIM with the email addresses that they provided.
So for the
Okay.
certificate, we update as our unit officers complete what we used to call the Form A, but as soon as you update your addresses on Member Hub for 21-22, we send that off to AIM. So July 1st, when they start releasing their certificates for the new year, they will make sure it goes to the new president of record.
Okay, but it goes by email, not by
Yes, it
mail.
will go by email, yes.
And what happens if the unit has not yet updated their officers in Member Hub?
There will be we will continue to do that. So we will hold their certificate as we, over time, but at a certain point, then they will be released to the treasurer or a separate address. Or if any unit can contact AIM to get a copy of their certificate, and that's another way. So if you don't have it because you don't know, we are having some, some glitches with the upgrade to Member Hub. So if you feel like you can't get your officers on there, if after July 1 you don't have your certificate, you can just contact AIM and they will send it out to you directly by email.
And AIM is very good about answering any questions. So if you have questions about the insurance, they can be very, very helpful if you do call them.
If someone can put the contact information for AIM during the next question, thank you.
Lynn, the next question, I want to defer to you. It's asking suggestions for units with officers that are aging out and no new officers lined up. What should they do?
That's a good one. And it happens more often than not. And it really is a shame. When you become a PTA officer, the first thing that you should be doing is looking for your successor. If you're really having that difficult of a time, my suggestion would be to contact your region director. And then a meeting could be held, whether you're allowed to have it live or by Zoom. And it could be explained to the members that without at least a president, a treasurer, and a secretary, you don't have a viable unit. And I could pretty much assure you that people will step up because they don't want the PTA to go away.
Thanks, Lynn. There's always some confusion. So officers, does their term end until the new elections take place? So COVID was a good example, right? Or do the officers continue on? Can you kind of clarify a little bit on that?
Sure. It actually you have to look at your bylaws. And that's where you find out when the term ends. Just because we had COVID doesn't take away the time that they have served. Hopefully they were having meetings. I know there are some officers that say, well, we really didn't do anything, so we should get an extra year. No, you have to abide by your bylaws.
Thank you.
And I'm going to put a little plug about recruiting new leaders specifically. Rob, how about that? This is a good opportunity. We have a workshop coming up in our summer leadership conference on the 21st of July that's going to address recruiting and supporting new leaders specifically. So we hope to be able to share, Rob and I, some useful tips. It is probably one of the most challenging things to recruit your successors. Like Lynn said, a huge part of our work in PTA is recruiting those successors and making sure they're supported and nurtured through the start of their positions. So that's going to be one of the specific workshops, along with many other workshops that everyone on the panel is actually presenting this summer on the 21st of July, and registrations are going to be going out. It's all virtual. You can be on your couch and learn all PTA matters at this event.
Thank you. This one is about Member Hub. Maybe one of the panelists knows a little bit more. It says, I cannot add next year's officers for 21-22. Is there a specific date when 2021-2022 opens up?
I can actually answer that one, Rob. Actually, Ona, I think, was the one who might have asked that question. If you go into your admin settings and where you go to add your PTA officers, If you click on that Add Officer button, it gives you the option to put in their information and select the 21-22 year. But I know, Ona, you're from my region, so if you have problems with that, you can certainly reach out to me anytime, okay?
Candy, if I could
Okay.
piggyback on
Sorry,
that too.
Sona. Yeah.
Hi, Ona. Just again to mention that we are having a few glitches with the upgrade that Member Hub is doing right now. So there are certain units that aren't able to access everything that they need to access on Member Hub. We will be keeping everybody updated on that. We have a call with Member Hub tomorrow to get you know, a status report of how things are going. So if you are having trouble with that, we are just finding out that some units aren't able to do their officer update yet. So we'll make sure that that information gets out to everybody as soon as we can give updates.
Awesome. Thank you. This is Ona. Yeah, I wanted to make sure that like the new officers for this upcoming year were able to start getting like stuff. And it just didn't show up to me, but that would make sense because if there's just a glitch, it showed up for both, like any unit that I was in charge of, it didn't show up as a drop down. So that makes sense though. Thank you.
This is Kyle. So right now we haven't rolled out Member Hub 21 yet to New York State because Dana and the team is still verifying that our data is wholly accurate. So just as a reminder, as actually Ona put it, you can go into the old dashboard, and for New York units, it's generally accurate in the old dashboard. You may have some glitches, but you really kind of want to be using the old dashboard right now. Thanks, sorry.
Okay, thanks. Please type in your questions in the chat if there are other questions. I think we have only one other question so far. And maybe Jerry, you can add a little bit more insight. She says, I have been on the president role for over 3 years and almost 4 years. I'm actively looking and trying to get new members. What do you suggest? And what have you seen as a past region director and now as field support?
Just making sure you put your forms out there. When you have meetings, recruit people. When you have meet the teacher night, recruit people. Just talk it up to everybody. It can be a hard thing to get members.
Additionally, I would say that you need to market the unit and the work that you do, and always send out information about what PTA has accomplished in your building and the role PTA has played in spite of school closings and all the difficulties, and how PTA remained at work through all that. It is very important that we learn how to market ourselves. Not all of us have a marketing degree or have the expertise in marketing. It's almost like learn to brag and sell your unit to the members and the parents in order to continue to show the importance and significance of PTA in your school. So don't lay low, actually brag and a lot of bragging. And I recall one of our high schools, I was kind of shocked at what they put together at the beginning of the year. In their membership flyer, they actually listed everything they did the prior year. And I was like, whoa, that's a long list. And you would assume in high school, PTA doesn't do as much work. Well, they were doing a lot. And it's very important to make the parents and the families aware of all that good work that's happening behind the scenes, because some of it is not visible, especially during schools being closed for extended times like we've been.
Thank you. So for the next one, I want to put it out to our 4 panelists.
With that in mind, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So it says, so for next school year, are we able to have both virtual and in-person meetings, for example? So this is an interesting one, and maybe we should go around with our panelists and given their opinion on their regions and their specific districts that they've managed in the past, and provide a little bit of insight as to those meetings and what their ideas are. Joan, you want to start?
What is the particular question about having meetings where you want to?
Right. So with the year starting now and more in face, so should units be trying to do in face and virtual, or what do you suggest?
I think you have to look at your individual PTA. Some units found that more members were able to attend when it was virtual. They could be home with their children. They didn't have to get babysitters. So more people attended the meetings. It's very nice to see people in person. I think it's a little bit more personable. You do probably maybe get volunteers more when you're in person, people to step up. So I think that you have to look at your individual PTA and what your members. Again, Zoom is very popular now. Google Meets, many schools allow PTAs to use the Google platform within the school, which was excellent. So I think you have to look at your individual PTA, and you can look at in the wintertime, depending on where you are. If you're in an area that just get like tons of snow and people can't come out, you might want to think about a Google Meet. This way you don't have to cancel any events. You don't have to cancel any meetings, and you can just keep the lines of communication open.
Thank you.
We have a question regarding receiving electronic payments. The question is, Member Hub is great, but there's a fee that and it adds up that fee to every electronic payment. Is there a way where these payments can be actually free of charge for members through another venue, or are you familiar with any way to reduce these fees and also while reducing possible wrongdoing? I'm changing the last word.
I don't think there's any platform that doesn't charge a fee. PayPal charges the fee. CheddarUp charges the fee. I don't think there's anything that doesn't charge the fee.
Is anyone else familiar with a platform that doesn't? We use CheddarUp in our council and our region. They charge the fee, so maybe you want to compare what the fees are and pick the cheapest option that is still secure. Anyone else on the panel would like to make suggestions on the payment carriers? Patty,
it's important that it's going into a PTA account and not into a personal account.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That was Lynn. And Patty?
So with Member Hub, and just so I want to be clear on the question, but Member Hub does offer the option of two ways. You can pass the fees on to the person using Member Hub making the payment, whether they're purchasing a membership or tickets to an event or spiritware, so that the person, again, who's making the purchase has the fee, or you can absorb the fee and not have the person doing the purchasing pay the fees, but the unit can pay the fees. So, it's another option. Either way, somebody has to pay the fees. And so if the unit is in a financial position where they can absorb the fees, it is an option for the unit to do it that way.
Great. So we're constantly looking for vendors that would minimize fees, obviously, and provide venues for secure payments. And as we learn of others, we are always sharing this information. So, these are the main ones that we're familiar with so far. Obviously, you don't want to Venmo or transfer money at all, like Lynn said, into any private accounts. You want it all to be going straight into the PTA account. Rob?
Andy, there's a question about, can a PTA pay for a Zoom line?
I think it's a great idea for the PTA to pay for a Zoom line, especially when we're hosting these virtual meetings. I think it's an absolute perfect PTA expense, and it would come in extremely handy. I know I was just looking down just to carry that thought. Catherine wanted to be clear that we're allowed to have virtual meetings next year. And unless somebody wants to correct me, we are still able to do that. We still have that permission and that ability to have our meetings virtually. So this is a great time to invest in that Zoom line for your unit.
Yeah, the permission was added to the bylaws this year. So, I would kind of suggest to a unit that the September meeting, they have people come in person But then as the weather gets colder, do Zoom. You get more people who will not want to go out to the schools and they'll just participate from home.
Can I just make a comment on the meetings, because I know that will be an issue this year. My suggestion is that you have a meeting where there is primarily business going on. The Zoom should be fine, but particularly around any elections, such as for a nominating committee or for officers, it will be much, much easier to run that meeting live in person than on Zoom. Okay, it does get a bit complicated with Zoom, as we have seen. So my suggestion is for voting on bylaws or for elections, make an effort if you can. Again, this is obviously if things are okay with your district and your PTA, to make sure that those meetings are done live. It's a much better forum and allows a little bit more security in terms of voting, as well as ease of voting rather than on Zoom, which can become a little bit complicated. So that's a suggestion I'd like to make. Also, the question before regarding when the officers take place, all bylaws say July 1 is the beginning of our fiscal year. So therefore, all new officers or next term officers start July 1.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you. The next question is about membership. Should we start recruiting for memberships now or wait till September? Patty?
Thank you, Rob. It's really my pleasure right now to be serving as a designated officer for membership in addition to being treasurer. So membership has always been a passion of mine, and I'm really enjoying working with the team. So we are excited to be really ramping up for this upcoming year. As all of you can imagine, our membership was a little bit less than we would have liked this year, but obviously we understand the reasons for that, but we really do believe that we can come back in a big way and come back strong. So those of you that use MemberHub, as we most all do, MemberHub is already set up to take memberships for the 21-22 year. That is something you can access right away. So we are just wrapping up this year, but yes, go ahead and start right now. Wherever and whenever, it's all about the ask. So wherever you see people and you want to ask them to join to support you in the upcoming year, all the great plans that you're going to have, now is the time. When you're out at the farmer's market or, you know, on the soccer fields or the softball fields, wherever you find yourself, now is the time to start. And we know all of the marketing that we talk about and all of the supporting flyers and logos and all the things that we're working on, we really know that the key to membership success is just to ask people to join. So let the ask begin.
I have a question.
I'll add
follow-up.
to just a quick suggestion to that on the membership. I know in the past, our school district has worked with the principals and administration before the start of the school year as they start to send out those welcome letters to all the parents to make sure that there is a PTA flyer in there and a PTA membership to kind of promote PTA and have the members as they get those welcome letters for the new students going into the schools and the existing students, so that they're aware already of the PTA presence and they can join membership and recruit them before September.
So true, Rob, especially those incoming new students, like coming into kindergarten or sixth grade or whatever your incoming grade is in your building. They tend to be, you know, new to the building, enthusiastic, and you can really recruit a lot of membership through that class. Patty, I wanted to follow up with that question. Is it still true that whatever members you enter prior to July 1st are going towards the previous year, and you have to start entering July 1st on for the new PTA year? Is that still the case in MemberHub?
No, there is a drop-down box in MemberHub that allows you to enter members for 21-22, and it has been open since April. And actually, we already have members for 21-22. So just as a reminder for membership accounting, so the membership dues at the local unit level is divided into two parts. The national and state portion, which is going to be continuing at $4, and then the local portion, which is anything you charge for dues over $4. Please keep in mind that the $4, whether you take it in now or even for next year, is below the line accounting. It should never be a part of your budget. that is money that belongs to state and national, and it's the only pass through that we allow a unit to do. So again, you're accepting the money on our behalf, but then you're transferring it to us on a regular basis. So that shouldn't be a part of your budget. But for the part that is a local, if you are selling dues money now, you can put that on your line and just have that be a ledger entry, or however you're keeping your books, as a note to the next year that you have collected some prior year membership. That's a treasurer's preference. They should work with their executive committee on how they're going to record that.
And is
Thank
member
you,
hub
Maria.
smart enough to not take two payments for the same member in the same year? Does member hub decipher that, or no? It could be a duplicate payment.
Not necessarily. There's lots of things that can happen. And yes, like I actually had somebody that joined and didn't realize the drop-down box said 21, 22 and really wanted to join for the current year. If those things happen, just contact the state office, please. D. Welch at nyspta.org. Just detail this situation and we can handle fixing it, so to speak. But it does have to be fixed, part of it through state. Sometimes you can delete, but if a refund is needed, then let's go through the New York State office.
Money, can you ask?
Another quick suggestion. Sorry, Rob, you know I can't stop talking. If somebody accidentally joins twice, they can always use that as, gift that membership over to somebody else. There's no, rather, if you don't want to go through the hassle of a refund or however you want to do it, that and the name change can go through and it can be gifted. So sorry, Rob,
No worries, Patty. I do have a separate question for you, Patty, real quick. As the units are transitioning, and for example, the concept of can we pay for Zoom came up. So before the books close and before the new officers take place, and you haven't had that first budget meeting, you haven't set your budget, you haven't set your expenses, what should the units do if they need to account for an expense that has not been allocated previously before the end of the year?
Great question. So we're recommending two different things. So, by tradition, most units and councils presented their upcoming year budget in September at their first meeting, line by line, probably one of the longest meetings of the year. So that's still a viable option. If that is the way that your unit wants to function, what you need to do is when the year closes in June, you need to approve some sort of spending plan for the July 1 through the first meeting of the year. So that would be the option, and that's how you would approve the expenses, like if you want to order up a Zoom in July. So it could just be a line item. It could just be an approved, like a motion to say we give the executive committee the power to have expenses of X amount and whatever you think you might need. Or you can line by line say these are the expenses we'll approve, or you can have your budget be put together. And this is how we do it at New York State PTA. So we create our budget in June for the upcoming year. We ask the executive committee to review it and approve it on a provisional basis until we have time for our board to approve it. So you have the option of creating the budget now, so it's in place until you need to actually have it approved by your members. And then it's a rolling document. It's a living document and can be obviously amended at that first meeting if something doesn't sit right with the new members based on what was passed in June.
Thank you. Lynn, there's a question with soliciting maybe or talking to local businesses about being sponsors.
Okay, we actually do that in Nassau region. It's okay, you're allowed to have a sponsor, but be careful who your sponsors are. You don't want to go and ask a liquor store to sponsor PTA. That's a no-no. But you can go to your local businesses, make sure that you have a contract. If you have an attorney, maybe that would volunteer their time to look over the contract so that everybody's protected. When we send out notices, we will put the sponsors on it. We will always introduce at events. And it's a really great way to work as collaborators with the local businesses. You can give them a nice certificate, which promotes PTA, as we also promote them.
Thank you. And just a quick follow-up, since we were talking about memberships and trying to recruit memberships before September, should we also try to recruit memberships from outside of our student body, our parent body, our communities? What are your thoughts as well?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you do that? Just remember that each membership can only have one name on it. So it would be in an individual's name, but you can make up a certificate for them to put in the window of their establishment to say how they support the PTA.
Thank you. Okay. Let me see another question.
And Rob,
Joe,
if
yeah.
I may, just
Yeah.
to elaborate on that, yes, definitely community members, because just because someone may not have a child in the school doesn't mean that they can't be part of the PTA. They could even be an elected officer. They could be a chairperson. I myself, I no longer had children in the middle school. I was a co-president. So it's, you know what, you might be missing out on really good leaders by not reaching out to the community.
Yeah, thank you. Joan, a quick question with, is it too late for officers, or if they haven't done their slate, if they haven't elected their officers, when is it too late to get new officers for the new year if they haven't done so?
I wouldn't say it's ever too late. If they haven't been able to have the recommended requirement of officers, which is your president, your secretary, and treasurer, they need to reach out to the membership. They might want to have, if they are using a virtual platform, they might want to have invite parents to talk about their PTA. They might want to reach out to, maybe there's a teacher who might want to be a vice president. There are all different ways to attract officers. So, but they do need to reach out to the membership and to let them know what their PTA is about. It's not too late to recruit members. They should look at their bylaws to see when the election should have taken place. But if they have not taken place, then they need to elect a nominating committee, start to look around to see who would be a good officer, and just start the process. Even if they are a little late, they need to start the process. But they should check their bylaws to see when it should have happened. They should try to do it really before the end of the school year, because sometimes it's difficult to reach parents once the summer comes.
So the best time is the time listed in their bylaws, right, Joan? It lists,
yes.
It lists exactly when it should have happened, but the best time after that is as soon as possible. Right. So that is the answer to that question, is the sooner the better, because this particular executive committee needs to get to work and start planning for the school year. So sooner is better. So Jerry, I want to follow up on that question. If you would please help us understand now. If a unit is asking, what if we have 2 officers but don't have all officers? Can we still hold that election? And how would we handle that?
I've gotten a few people who have said, we can't find a secretary. What do we do? I'm like, have your election for your president, vice president, and treasurer, and then try to recruit somebody over the summer. Even in September at your meeting, you just get a secretary pro tem that will just do your notes for that meeting. You may get a kindergarten parent who says, I'll do it. Those kindergarten parents are always interested in getting involved. So, keep trying.
So you would actually hold the election regardless of how many officers you have in place. You would go ahead and elect who you have ready.
That is correct. Hold the election, the officers, they can get elected, and then of course whatever officer is not elected would be a vacancy, and they would
knowing that you cannot officially begin until you have the 3 officers. Am I correct?
In my experience, as long as you have your president and your treasurer, those are the ones who really are your meat of your organization of the secretary. That's somebody that you can get later on. And a vice president too. If you have vice presidents and nobody steps up right then and there, that's not a required one. So you can fill that in later on too.
Jackie, can you help us with like the formation of a nominations committee? Let's say a unit is running behind on nominations and elections that were required to be by a certain time in their bylaws. How do they move forward?
Okay, if you have had your election, and as you said, only 2 of 3 offices were elected, then the office that was where nobody was elected would become a vacancy. According to our bylaws, a vacancy is filled by a vote of the executive board. So you would need to call an executive board meeting as soon as possible with notice to the executive board that there will be an election for secretary. And again, explaining that we have to have a secretary to have a PTA, and hopefully at that executive board meeting, you would be able to elect the secretary. So any office that was not filled at the election meeting becomes a vacancy, and that vacancy can be filled with notice to the executive board at an executive board meeting. So that's the way you would fill a vacancy. You don't have to do a nominating committee again or anything. If you've had your election, then the vacancy would be filled at an executive board meeting. And again, as soon as possible after the election so that you can have all officers in place.
Thank you.
So Jackie, just a quick question, just kind of in the interim. So let's say, for example, July 1st comes and all the officers, their term has ended, right? And no committee has been formed. Who should really take on the challenge or the initiative to create a nominating committee to get new officers? Is that still kind of fall into the old officer slate, or in that
So
interim?
if you did, in other words, no election happened, as we said, as Joan said before, it needs to happen ASAP. In my case, in that sense, I would definitely contact the region director for assistance, because it can be complicated. Because if the present officers say it's June 30 and I'm out the door, okay, there'd be nobody to start, kind of get things going. So if that was the case and there were no officers, definitely contact the region director, because if they don't have officers, they would have to, be dissolved if they can't get officers. So if the officers prior, new officers had not been elected and there's no one to begin the process, then the region can help and step in and hold the election, call the meeting, et cetera. In many cases, you will have the past officers can do that if they are still going to stay in. But again, you have to be aware that, there might be insurance issues, and Patty can probably answer this better than I can, in terms of signing checks and things of that nature. Those things have to be rectified so that the business can be done. But again, if there's no election, if there's no one to begin the process, the region can absolutely step in and assist.
Thank you, Jackie. Lynn, just a quick follow-up on the sponsorships. Do the sponsors have to sponsor for a specific program or project, or are they required to sponsor in general, and the PTA determines where the funds go?
It actually could be both. We do both. We have some sponsors that will sponsor for the entire year, and then some for individual projects, such as our LegCon or our Arts and Ed Showcase. It's whatever they desire.
I just want to add on to the sponsorships. We offer some of the exhibitors that come to our spring conference down here in Suffolk. We offer them an opportunity to also be a sponsor. And we have varying different ways that they could do. They could pay a certain fee if they wanted to be on our website, if they just wanted us to send out their information. So we have a whole breakdown on what they can contribute and what kind of sponsor they really want to be. So you can have a whole plan.
And again, I think, as Joan said, the plan is is very important. You need to have a procedure for it. It's not just, oh, pay $50, you get this. Whatever you're going to ask the sponsors to do, they have to make sure that they are within the framework of PTA values and mission. Okay, like Lynn said, no alcohol, things like that. But you also have to have a plan of exactly how you're going to work the sponsorships. And again, that should be voted on by your executive board because it's a procedure. So that's important to note, that if you're going to do sponsorships, be very careful about the way you write up the procedures.
Thank you. Patty, I think this one, I'll read it. It's in reference, she's a new PTA president in the role, and she received a renewal letter from the IRS for the exempt status. She asked the previous president, and she was told that it wasn't needed because councils don't do fundraising.
Oh, okay. So a renewal?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know that we should be receiving that. I don't know, I'm not sure I know what that document is, but so basically we're all required, every PTA unit, council, region, state, we're all required to report to the IRS, regardless of what we do. That is part of 501c3 law. So again, it's IRS law that we have to report to them. So the form that we use for that is called the 990, and it comes in various forms. The 990N is available to any unit, council, region, state that has gross income, meaning all the money you take in before you pay any expenses, your big number. If it's 50,000 or less, you can use this postcard, which is a very simple process. You answer a few questions, you fill out an electronic form, just saying, yes, we are still a PTA, we're still available at this address, and yes, we have less than $50,000 in income. Hit send and you've filed. That period opens July 1st. And closes for the most part November 15th. So we want everyone to file between July 1st and November 15th. If you go over the 50,000, you have to then fill out the 990 EZ form, and there are various levels. Each level that you go up to, and most of our units only go with the two, the 990N and 990 EZ, you have to provide more information on the EZ form about your financial activities. They're all very, the forms are manageable, even at the easy level, if you just take it one step at a time, one question at a time, but we're here to help with any of the answers on that. So I'm not sure if I would really like to hear from this council if they want to send me a direct chat. I just want to make sure, but everyone is aware that yes, you must file that 990 annually. And we do contract on behalf of all of our units and councils and regions with an organization called file990.org, and they will send email reminders monthly to the president, reminding them to file, and there will be a link there that you can file right through that email to the 990 form that you need to fill out. It's very simple, and it really is very important that you file. If a unit, council, region, or state does not file for 3 successive years, your status will be revoked by the IRS, and then you will have to go through the process of being reinstated. And that is a little bit, it's really just not ideal. Staying current with the IRS is part of your good standing, and that is most important for all of our units. But again, we're happy to answer any of the IRS questions, and certainly your region director as well can be helpful, or your region treasurer on that particular issue. But I would like to hear from that council if you want to zip me a direct message in the chat thing or send me an email.
Yeah, thanks, Patty. That's correct. Typically, you don't renew a certificate. You get issued your exempt status certificates when you charter, and not as a renewal. So. Yeah, so if that person, if they can send an email to Patty or send it to chat@newyorkstatepta.org so that we can address it again. Thank you. I'm catching up, Amani. You wanna?
I'm not clear on the 990 question that is in the chat, Patty, but I'm going to read it as it is. Can a unit use a 990 N receipts less than 50,000 even if some of the receipts are from raffles? I'm not exactly clear. on this question?
Yes. So you know, our guidance in PTA for fundraising is simply this. Units should prepare their program for the year, everything that they want to do on behalf of their students and families that is going to achieve the mission of PTA. And once you have that set up, and obviously sometimes things are going to have expenses attached to them. If you want to bring in, you know, a wellness speaker, oftentimes you will have to, you know, pay a stipend for that. So you get all your expenses. And once you have your expenses, then that's how you plan your fundraising. Okay, we as a unit, we need $10,000 this year to achieve everything we want to achieve. So you do your fundraising that way. We encourage everybody to do fundraising that also fits within the mission of PTA. So again, fundraisers that engage families to better what's happening with their child's education, their home life, their community. So that being said, you know, many PTAs do use basket raffles and similar type activities for an individual fundraiser. That is certainly acceptable. What we are not encouraging units is to get into the raffle business where you're doing multiple raffles and really kind of refocusing your efforts on more of a fundraising than advocacy, because really that's what we are, advocacy based. So the raffles, again, that is part of your income and that would go towards your gross income. Again, we have provided a document to all the units on how to handle games of chance is what, you know, the raffles would fall under. There are definitely guidelines of how much you can raise at raffles, whether you need a license to do that type of fundraising. So please, if you don't have access to the document on games of chance, please contact your region director so that they can provide that to you.
Thanks, Patty.
Thank you, Patty.
Next one, I'll just
Rob, one
Sorry,
second, just as a reminder on that Games of Chance document that is posted in our resource guide section. So you can go to the resource guide and on the bottom of that page, that gaming document is there. So you can actually get that directly. We posted it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie, so I'll ask it as a two-part question, and then maybe at the end of answering the question on the bylaws, you can clarify the three or four requirements for a unit to be in good standing. This question is about bylaws. If a unit files their bylaws or they're late filing their bylaws, can they backdate it, or what should they do?
No, you can't backdate it. If you're more than a year past your bylaws date of expiration, you need to start the process all over again. And whoever is the unit president and secretary at that time, those are the people that sign the cover page. Your unit would have to vote on them again, because you have to remember, in a year, you may have different members, okay? You probably have different officers. So therefore, you need to bring the bylaws back to your unit for approval. You need to go back into the EZ. And in many cases, if the bylaws have been sitting in our queue for more than a year, we will delete them. So therefore, they won't even be up there for us to approve. The important thing is to do it when it's timely. And we understand this year was a very strange year and a lot of units had difficulty. However, many of them were very timely doing it. So if your bylaws are that old, you should renew them by restarting the process through the wizard and then going from there. And again, region bylaws chair as well as region director can assist you with all of that information.
And the follow-up question to that, is there a penalty for filing the bylaws late? Is there some sort of
No penalty, but Rob did ask about units in good standing. So I know I'm going to miss one of these, but it's bylaws up to date, membership paid at least 25 members, IRS status not revoked, the officer's contact information in place, and I'm missing one. Insurance, thank you. So those are the things that all the units need to stay in good standing. What does that mean? Well, you are not eligible for any grants or awards, and that goes for your students or your teachers or your parents. So it is punitive in a sense, because you're not in good standing. And that's unfortunate. Things such as reflections or humanitarian award or Jenkins scholarships, your unit, your student, your teacher could be disqualified if one of those items is not in good standing. That's why we constantly send out reminders. I know my bylaws chairs do when I was bylaws coordinator. I know the membership people do, et cetera, insurance. So the region directors really try to do that to assist the units in making sure that their units are in good standing. And of course, the IRS is a big one. And that's one that, you know, all of the units need to be in compliance with as well.
Thank you,
Another thing, if your bylaws are out or membership or anything else like that, and you want to get a letter of determination to prove that you are a 501c3 for a fundraiser or whatnot, you won't be able to get that from the state office because you are not in good standing. So keep up on everything.
Great point, Jay. The last one that I see in the queue is about gift cards. Can you shed some clarity on gift cards as far as gifts, prices, and if they're not allowed as per New York State PTA?
Is that for me? So there has been a lot of discussion back and forth all the way up to the national level about gift cards. So our guidance on gift cards is this. If you are using them as gifts or drawer prizes or that, we recommend that they not be over a reasonable amount, $25 or less. We would prefer that gift cards as gifts kind of be like almost like the last option. So hopefully we could come up with something else, but at this time, we don't have any guidance that prevents a unit from utilizing gift cards as gifts or prizes. But again, we caution on the amount.
Thank you. Okay. I think that was the last question. Does anybody else have another question? Put it in chat, or if not, we can start to close up. Imani?
So we mentioned a few times as part of your responses, and I want to reiterate that you all have the support of your region and your region director. It is very important to be familiar with who that is. And if you're not sure who your region director is, please either look at the New York State PTA website contact page or email NYS PTA, and we will put you in touch with your region director. They are remarkable people who are on the ground, who are familiar with your unit, very familiar with your unit, and can really be of great support to you. The amazing field support coordinators who were on this web chat are their backup support, and they've all served as region directors. So they've been in the trenches for quite some time and are well familiar with PTA work, as you can see and hear, and so they would support them. And of course, you know, our treasurer and our bylaws chair and everybody in the New York State PTA board supports the rest. So to end this, I would like to thank Patty Frazier, our New York State PTA treasurer. I would like to thank our 4 field support coordinators, Joan Wobnick, Lynn Petrovsky, Jerry Lehane, Candy Ditkowski, and I'd like to thank our leadership training specialist, Jackie Wilson. Your wealth of information is very helpful to our volunteers and our leaders throughout the state. And please do not hesitate to reach out to us. And we hope you will register for a summer leadership conference, which again will take place July 21st from 6 to 9 p.m. There is such a large variety of workshops that you'll be able to select from in your areas of work, PTA work. And we're happy to continue to support you and look out for our future webinars. We've put the link in the chat to our old webinars, and this recording will be posted as well. Thank you. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.